Okay, hello everyone and welcome to today's listening session. Before we get started, we'll do some brief intros and then I'll go into a basic overview of where we're at with everything. And then once we go through the brief overview, then we'll open it up to just kind of open-ended comments, questions, concerns, things for the council to think about. As a reminder, these listening sessions are fairly open-ended, so we aren't working off an agenda because we want to hear what you want to talk about. And then we will also be consolidating all of that feedback and providing it in a report to the full council for their review on a monthly basis. Once we get into the overview, I'll talk a bit more about the frequency of these meetings and what this is going to look like as the year shapes out, as we kind of work through COVID, vaccination, all of that. But I will get to that a little bit later in today's meeting. So I'm Christine, the Governor's Tribal Advisor. I'm Mihilikana and Makamo and a member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians. And I am tasked with kind of leading this council and standing it up. I'm not a member of the council, but I'm here to kind of help them do what they need to do on the state side. Loretta, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, and first I do want to note that we are recording this. So this will be available on our website. So I just wanted to give everybody that notice. And my name is Loretta Miranda. I am Chief Deputy Tribal Advisor and Special Counsel for the Tribal Advisor's Office. And I've been in this role for a few months now. I'm Serrano and Cupeño. I'm a descendant from the Morongo Band of Mission Indians. And I am just looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today. And thank you.
Thanks, Loretta. And then if there's any council members who'd like to introduce themselves, you can do so now.
Hi, folks. I am Kusla Kessler Mata, Yaktitu Titu Yaktilhimi Chumash from Avila Beach area. I'm here as a Central Regional Council member.
Thank you, Council Member. And I see we also have Council Member Manzano on if you'd like to introduce yourself as well, but no pressure.
Hamitach, everyone. My name's Alexis Manzano. I'm Serrano from San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and I'm here as a representative of the Central Region, as an alternate, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. And so part of this is it's open-ended, but also any council members who have questions for the community can put those out or any updates that they'd like to give as well. So I am very quickly going to go through an overview of the council, where things are at, some of the things that the council is thinking about, and then we will again open up for questions and thoughts. As a reminder, these meetings are recorded, as Loretta mentioned, and the recordings from last month are available at the new WordPress that we stood up. So for everyone, oh, great. So this is in the chat. Michael Park from our office, who helps assist me and Loretta, has just put in the chat. Thank you, Michael. The link to the new WordPress. And that's where you can go, and you can also subscribe to get frequent updates for just ongoing communication and engagement. So if you go there, we've got under March 2021 regional listening session recordings, we've got all of the links. And then we also have a lot of other things that will be updated frequently. So we encourage you to follow that page if you'd like to have frequent engagement with the council. We've also got on that page the full dates for regional listening sessions for the next, for 2021. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that as well. Into the chat. And this way you can see when the regional listening sessions are for your region. And they will be rotating on a monthly basis. So they'll all happen around the third week of the month. And the days will be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 1 to 2:30 with the same participation information that you're using today. We want to make it as easy as possible for folks to jump in, express any comments, questions, and concerns. And so we will make these times available, as we move forward. For this month, we've got Monday was the Eastern listening session, Tuesday was Northern, Wednesday was Central, and Thursday is Southern. As a reminder, we, are splitting this on a regional basis to kind of anticipate and future-proof for when we can actually meet in person. And we anticipate that we'll be holding these regionally throughout the state, likely on a monthly basis, maybe less than that, depending on how things go as we kind of transition into a more in-person venue. But again, when we do that, Loretta and I will probably be alternating on who is taking the lead, so that one of us can be in the Eastern region and one of us can maybe be in the Northern region on the next day. So we are not also defining how you choose to engage with this council. So if you feel that you should be attending Central sessions because you live within the region covered by the Central area, but your tribe is in Northern California, you are welcome to attend any and all sessions that you feel appropriate. For next month, just so folks are aware, the listening sessions, Southern will be on Monday, May 17th. Eastern will be on Tuesday, May 18th. Northern will be on Wednesday, May 19th. And Central will be on Thursday, May 20th. Aligned with this, at least for 2021, until it kind of foundationally established, the council will also be meeting on the Friday just after the listening sessions. So for this month, it's this Friday is the regular business meeting of the council on the 23rd from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. The agenda for that we'll go through in a little bit, but from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. will be general business of the council with a kind of hard stop at 3 so that we can have a full hour of public engagement. So if you'd like to speak directly to the full council, you can also come to that session as well. Is there anything I'm missing? In the future, and I'll go over this in a little bit, the council will transition to the cadence that is explained under the charter, which is quarterly meetings regionally throughout the state, with day 1 being a talking circle type facilitated discussion, and day 2 being more of a hearing style. But for now, the council is seeking to get established, have foundational subcommittees and structures put together, get the staffing it needs, and then hopefully we'll be fully on its anticipated schedule starting January of next year at the latest. So I'm very quickly going to go through an overview of the Truth and Healing Council for those of you who are just joining this effort now. And Loretta, if you'd like to put the overview document, if people want to follow along, that'd be great. Great, perfect, great timing. So the California Truth and Healing Council was created by Executive Order N-1519 and bears witness to, records, examines existing documentation of, and receives California Native American narratives regarding the historical relationship between the state of California and California Native Americans in order to clarify the historical record of such relationship in the spirit of truth and healing. The council is led and convened by the Governor's Tribal Advisor and includes representatives from California Native American tribes, can include relevant state and local agencies and other relevant non-governmental stakeholders. The council's limited term and will disband upon issuance of its final report on January 1st, 2025. The council is organized under a charter and is made up of voting members and non-voting members. There are currently 12 voting members, all of which must be representatives of California Native American tribes. Of the 12 voting members, 3 members need to be from Southern, Central, Northern, and Eastern geographical areas of the state. And for each of those areas, one of the 3 appointed voting members needs to be from a non-federally recognized tribe that's on the list maintained by the Heritage Commission. Each area also has 1 alternate voting member, so that in the event that the voting members are not available, the alternate voting member acts for a voting member for the duration of that time. The tribal advisor is our office, is going to arrange for a time to consult with all of the tribes on the NAHC list. And we're hoping to do all of that and wrap up January 24. And And we're doing that to record, gather existing documentation of, and receive narratives regarding the historical relationship between the state of California and California Native Americans. As we kind of get into a more open state, and once we get guidance from the state about our ability to do more in-person meetings, in-person travel, we will be reaching out to start setting up in-person meetings. But we're also very open to having conversations via Zoom, via conference call, to just kind of have some, lay the groundwork for what we can expect, or if you have anything you'd like us to take a look at from your tribe's perspective. Once we get into a more kind of in-person type of space, we are happy to come to you, or if you'd like to come to us, we will defer to what the tribes prefer in terms of days, times, locations, and understand that you are open to sharing and you're welcome to share what you'd like to share, and that we are not compelling you to share anything. That said, we do have resources to record and transcribe any conversations we have. So if you have elders that you think it would be valuable to have them to capture their stories and get those transcribed and recorded for posterity, we are happy to do that. And we'll basically take your lead as we move forward. If you'd like to request a consultation, you can do so at the website, at the Tribal Affairs website, which is tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC/consultation. You can also email us at info.tribalaffairs@gov.ca.gov, and we will try to accommodate your request. Because the council is the first entity of its kind like this in the United States, it's critical that California tribal governments and the broader California Native American population drive the work of the council while offering broad access and opportunities to support and amplify the work to all Californians. The council is charged with performing its work with transparency, inclusion, and respect for all experiences, viewpoints, and backgrounds, and welcomes and encourages the participation of all California Native Americans, regardless of enrollment status. The historical depredations under examination of the council are part of the collective experience of peoples of California Native Americans. Facts are not limited to citizenship status. The council welcomes and encourages all available methods for public participation. Although the methods for public participation are not limited in general, the public may attend and observe all meetings of the council, submit written comments to the council, and make oral statements and testimony to the council. In March of 2021, the council instituted these monthly regional listening sessions in order to provide more opportunities to receive community input. The council adopted a charter in December of 2020, and in February 2021, the council considered bylaws but have not yet adopted them. So they'll be considering those in the meeting on Friday. And then in February 2021, the council also created 2 committees. One is the Youth Council Committee, and that was created to build out an avenue for youth to engage with this council. And then the Academic Partnerships Committee, which was built to facilitate partnerships with academic institutions. So for example, we've been getting on the staff side a lot of outreach about different institutions that want to partner, whether it's offering a fellowship for study, research, or amplifying the work of the council with the research they're doing independently in their own processes for restoration. The committees have not yet been staffed, and so that's going to happen this Friday as well, and we anticipate that being 2 council members for each committee. And then the council plans to create additional committees, and we'll go through the agenda for this Friday as well so that folks can take a look at that. To provide and preserve public access to the primary materials for the final report and appendices, the council will live stream, record, and transcribe meetings, and it will audio record and transcribe consultations as well. All materials will be available on the website of the Governor's Tribal Advisor at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. And the recordings of these meetings are going to be hosted on the WordPress as well. And so again, there's the recordings from last month are posted. We've also got an overview document. If you look through the materials, I'll put that link in the chat as well. Oh, Loretta. Very good timing. So Loretta just put it. Oh, sorry, no. I'm getting ahead of myself. Zoom in all its awkwardness. So here's the link for the overview of last month's listening sessions. And so these are going to be generated, and we hope to have one generated by Friday for the council to look at as well. But these are generated to summarize the comments that we hear in these spaces, so that where council members would like to have a quick look at what was discussed and kind of think about it, they can take a look. And then also the community can also look at what people were talking about in previous consultations and listening sessions in order to inform your future input. So let's see. Materials are available on my website at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. So you can also see future meeting dates. And so the meeting dates I mentioned earlier are at this link, along with agendas. So I'm going to put this in the chat as well. And so for this year, we've got meeting dates planned out through November with no meeting in December, to give folks a little bit of a break. And depending on how things go with the council, they can choose to cancel some of these meetings, but we wanted to create some consistency for members of the public to engage, and also for the council to be able to plan out their schedules. So if you take a look at the meeting site, the next meeting is this Friday and the agenda is posted. And then the meeting after that is May 21st. The meeting after that is June 18th, the second year anniversary of the governor's apology. So we'd actually like to hear about what folks would like to see. We're thinking about potentially planning a more of a build out with that, depending on whether we're in person or not. But would like some community input on what the community would like to see from that meeting. And then July 23rd, August 20th, September 17th, October 22nd, and then November 19th. Again, if the council feels like they're in good shape to, discontinue monthly business meetings and then start up the normal type of meetings of full day listening, talking circles, and then day of hearing style, it's at the council's initiative to do so. And then the council is currently meeting via Zoom and via the internet, and all of that information is available on the agenda as well. Because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So all meetings take place virtually and are live streamed until conditions allow for in-person participation. But once COVID-19 conditions alleviate, the council will rotate its meeting locations in the 4 geographical areas throughout the state. So we've had some discussion about what that looks like. We've had some discussion about hosting portions of these meetings in places that are historically significant for treaty making purposes. So, sites of the unratified treaties. We've of having components of the meeting are spiritually significant to California tribes, or they're just significant lands because of the major land loss for California. We've also had discussions of having meetings be aligned with some of the gatherings of Native people, so that there's kind of a component. And my internet connection is unstable, so Loretta, you may need to jump in if I start sounding like a robot. More than usual, I mean. But there has been some discussion about having meetings that are aligned with cultural gatherings, so that there's also a kind of component of cultural immersion for folks that aren't native to Native communities. So for example, having things be aligned with big times, fiestas, powwows, just some thinking around that. So that's kind of it for the overview. I'm going to quickly go through the agenda for Friday just to get folks up to speed, and then maybe we can open it up to participants who'd like to introduce themselves and even just give some thoughts and comments or some thoughts about the council itself, or if you came with a purpose, we don't want to prevent you from saying what you need to say. So I'll say on the front end, no one needs to feel like they need to restrict their comments. This space is supposed to be an open-ended space. Again, you are recorded, so if you don't want things to be posted on the internet, then that would be your only limitation. But this really is supposed to be community driven, so want to make sure that if you have something to say, that you don't feel like you need to shorten your comments because of any constraints outside of that. So on Friday, the council will consider a number of carryover items from last meeting. So they'll look at the bylaws and then discuss if there's any other mechanisms that need to be in place to ensure adequate process of the meetings. And those bylaws are available on the Tribal Affairs website. And they will be posted also on that meeting page. So I'll post those later today so that all of this is in the same place, along with the overview of the listening sessions. Subcommittees, they're going to discuss as well. So the youth council, as I mentioned, is going to be staffed. They also may want to hear more about, in this space, but also in that meeting, about what the youth council might look like, whether it's kind of a mini council that has its own rules and process and all of that, or whether it is more of an open-ended, all-inclusive council for any youth who want to be engaged in this. So I think they would be interested in hearing more about what could be most useful for our youth and how to kind of navigate that engagement in a very difficult topic area, and whether they might need some staffing to help facilitate it if folks have ideas about good organizations that have kind of worked in this space with youth and Native youth specifically. They are also going to talk again, as I mentioned, about the academic partnerships subcommittee and staffing that. And then the third subcommittee that they hadn't yet considered last meeting is the partnerships on funding. And this is more to be in the conversations about philanthropy and the ways that philanthropy can support some of the work of this council, whether it's through funding documentary services, whether it's through funding research, whether it's through funding reparations type actions. So that is what that partnership will do. And then they can also discuss any other subcommittees. We had mentioned in some other of the listening sessions the potential for, an international liaison subcommittee. So for things like the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, having a subcommittee that's just the go-to to liaise with the international community. Potentially having an outreach subcommittee. There's a kind of a lot of things that they can do. So I think in this conversation, if folks have ideas about what would be helpful to the foundations of the work for this council, that would be really helpful. That said, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the scope. The council itself has decided to engage in more listening like this, and in its meetings to think it through what should be under consideration of the council. So if you have ideas about specific issues, specific time periods, specific overarching concepts, we've had some ideas about like identity in general. And so like, what does that mean? Is that, enrollment status, visibility, even how you're able to express yourself in the world. And then ideas about, natural resources and impacts to that. And so missing and murdered Indigenous women and how that might be related to some of these historical precursors. And so there's just been a lot of ideas that we've, heard over the past few listening sessions. And so if there are ideas about scope, would love to have that input. And then also in future, once the foundations are together, this council will then think about how to adequately create a scope around this work, but then also will likely create subcommittees that track with those specific areas, whether it's, more focused on like issue area as we typically think about it, like land and natural resources, economic development, stuff like that, or whether it's more overarching conceptual ideas like, identity, visibility, things like that. They also are going to think through and hopefully have some direction on our contracting with culturally informed wellness practitioners or practitioner. We've gotten a lot of good feedback about what might be most helpful in this space, and have heard kind of a number of ideas. It's sounding like having kind of a buffet of options for people to engage with is sounding like what people are looking for, that there's people and organizations that have kind of different skills in terms of navigating historical trauma, but also ongoing behaviors as a result of the reality that Native people live with today, but also thinking about family wellness and childhood wellness. And so happy to listen to more about that. And then they'll talk a bit about these listening sessions in the public and community engagement input update. Again, public comment will start at or around 3. I think that's kind of it for the agenda. Is there anything I missed, Loretta, or anything you'd like to add at this time?
Nope, you got it covered.
Great. Well, so with that, if you would like to engage, but you don't want to engage with the whole group or on camera, you are welcome to message us personally in the chat or message everybody in the chat. If you have thoughts after the fact, you are welcome to email the info.tribalaffairs@gov.ca.gov, which I'll just put in the chat as well. And then also, as you have thoughts, feel free to off camera or not, unmute yourself, and also just kind of let folks know what you're thinking. And if you have any thoughts after the fact, you're also welcome to join tomorrow in the listening session, which again will be for the southern region, but is also, we want folks to come when they can. So feel free to come if you have thoughts after the fact. Or you can come on Friday for the full live stream meeting as well. I think I covered all of the methods of engagement, but if I didn't, we want to hear from you whatever way feels right. So if folks would like to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so at this time, and any thoughts you have, or if there's anything that you wanted to specifically speak to the council about.
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
I actually spoke to you guys yesterday. Unfortunately, I reside in Fresno County, and I guess the session was on Monday because it was classified as Eastern region. But my questions, I have a few actually. But right now, I'm in Fresno County, and I'm actually leading a campaign to rename Squaw Valley Fresno County. I'm indigenous to the area, and every tribe that is indigenous to that valley are all non-federally recognized tribes. So not only do we feel like we're being disrespected, but we also have a race against time with regards to federal recognition. For instance, there are many of those tribes, if not all of them. Well, I can say definitively with one of the tribes, they only have one fluent speaker left. I've lost my grandfather, who was my language speaker. So our language speakers are constantly dwindling. But with regards to the Squaw Valley and how it ties to the MMIWG2 movement, I was wondering what resources or what can this community do to kind of aid my efforts with the Board of Supervisors, who currently at the lowest level has the authority to really begin that change of renaming. Not necessarily to the proposed name that I propose, but to begin the renaming process? Is there a letter of support that I can receive written from your committee? Are there other avenues of support you could possibly direct me to? Like I've already spoken with ACLU. They've provided a written statement of support. So I have a meeting with this board, and hopefully it'll be on the agenda June 8th. So that's kind of my timeline right now. And that's really just my first question.
So I think those options are all available. And so if you would like the council to consider a letter of support, they can definitely do that. And they can do that probably either on Friday, even though they couldn't necessarily act, but they could probably sign off in the May meeting, which would be ahead of time of that. Another resource that is outside of this council that you might want to look to is, I know Assemblymember Ramos has been pretty active in the MMIW space and is also the only California native in the legislature, and could also be helpful in kind of helping with this.
You're absolutely right. I'm actually playing phone tag with Assembly Ramos. I've been told that if I don't hear back from his office next week, to give them a call back. I've been calling pretty much on a regular every week this month. The last 2 days I've called your organization and left voicemail. On the voicemail, it says usually it's a 24-hour turnaround rate. I guess my question is the best way to communicate with your organization the email?
Yeah, I think the email is probably best. And so I think if the request is specific to the Truth and Healing Council, we'd like to see that, because we also deal with like a few other initiatives in our office. And so it would be really helpful if the ask is for the Truth and Healing Council to weigh in, that we can very, easily bring that to them and to their attention.
Hey, would it be all right to go ahead and share the link to my online petition that has basically the proposed resolution on it?
Sure, if you'd like to put that in the chat, feel free to share. Councilmember Kessler-Mata, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thanks. I definitely think we should also review the bylaws to make sure that we're able to take such actions. I just want to make sure that we've covered all the logistical snafus, because I was under the impression that we wouldn't be able to, but it's good to know if we can actually do that type of work.
Yeah, Loretta and I will take a look at it, and if it's something that you do want to do, then we could think about amending the bylaws as well. I guess as a thought in this context, just for the council members who are here, this council was also designed to be looking at things it could do before the report is out and before the recommendations are made. So if there are, without weighing down the other work of the council, I think if there are easy items that the council would like to take up, it might be worth thinking about how to do that. So not something to respond to yet, but maybe something to think about how this council wants to move forward on those types of initiatives. And then you had a few more comments, correct, Roman?
Yes. My other comment really kind of centers on, will there ever come a point, and if so, how soon, of expanding the current board membership? Because as we were talking about yesterday, I was looking at the 3 that represent the Eastern region, which Fresno County would reside in. Looking at them, as far as my tribal affiliation goes, the nearest tribes are really hours away from us. And as somebody who's non-federally recognized, and we have a high concentration of non-federally recognized tribes here in Fresno County, as well as the casino tribes, and there's a huge disparity between the 2 tribes and what we're able to accomplish. Will there ever be something that will expand it so that maybe someone more locally will be here and will be more readily available to bring forth those ideas and concerns that are pertinent to our people, may not be pertinent to the other board members as much, just simply because their communities are so far away. I mean, I saw the representative of the Wintu Nation when I went to UC Davis. They were the closest people, them and the Patwin. The university resides on Patwin land. But then the other gentleman's from Tule River, which is down in Porterville, which is even considerably hours away from us southern. There's nobody really in this region. And that was kind of my concern because as we face federal recognition, I often wonder, looking at the last tribe that gained federal recognition, and they're the descendants of Pocahontas. What is someone like me who is a Choi Numni, or what about the Wakchumni or the Waxahachie people, little tribes of maybe 200 people, tribal enrollment? What chance of being heard? Because a lot of us feel like, we're not even invited to the table, let alone even have a voice at the table. And so that's kind of where my concern is with regards to expanding the current board membership.
So at this time, the council would like to kind of stabilize and get to know each other and feel out how they're going to work together, and have put kind of a pause on expanding to non-voting membership. So it's not clear whether they're going to do that. They have the ability to if they want to, but it's not clear if they will. But I think the point that I mentioned before too is that the council, again, is here to receive narratives, and also we can receive those narratives as well. There is a challenge that we faced when trying to think about, with tribal leaders, the ideal size and the ideal representation of this council, because there's, on the NHC list alone, there's over 170 tribes, and all of those have kind of distinct cultures, distinct, histories, distinct everything. And so with the council, what we sought to, or what we strove to achieve were, folks that had the buy-in of the community, the support of the communities, but not necessarily trying to find folks that would represent all of the interests, because nobody can do that. And every single Native person has kind of a very unique individual history, just given what happened here. So I know that's a long answer. I think that I would encourage folks who engage with this council to see it more as you are your representative here, and how much or how little you choose to engage will be how your community is reflected in the work. Our council members are here to receive and to kind of guide the framework for the work, but aren't here to advocate for their interests or their communities. They're here really much more as making sure that the work does holistically represent every perspective of California Native peoples. Did you want to add anything, Loretta? You get on the hot seat because your camera's on, so.
No, I think that's, just reiterating like the overall, goal of the initiative. Like, this is community driven. And so providing these opportunities, not just the listening sessions, but the council meetings, to have a space of hearing testimony. That is really, as Christina said, like, it's each individual sharing the story. So it's the council members are there as the body that's driving the actual work and doing the day-to-day, implementation. But it's really community driven. So I think coming to a space like this is exactly where you're getting your voice heard. And so that's just the recommendation that I have.
Yeah, and I would say too that I know it's difficult and challenging in kind of a Zoom format, and also because this council started in the middle of COVID. And so how we traditionally think about these kind of bodies feels more hierarchical, but in this space, all the council members we've designated as council members, regardless of what their status is within their tribes or within the organizations they work with. And in practice, when we're kind of in person, we hope that we will kind of maintain that more equilibrium of everybody's experiences valued, equal, and valid.
If I could add something here, I would want to actually maybe ask the question of you as well, Roman. What would it mean for us as a council to be community driven? Like, what would it look like for us to be able to embody that if, in fact, right, the structure of the council remains as 12 voting members, maybe alternates and so forth? If that basic formula remains, what does it look like to be held accountable to the community and so forth?
You know, that's something I really would have to kind of take in and really digest. But off the top of my head, I would see, you know, just more awareness. A lot of people in my area weren't even aware that these meetings were going on. So yesterday I forwarded it to as many people as I could, and I don't really know how many of those people were able to attend today. I know that I didn't hear about it until Monday, and that was from the ACLU rep, who I'm doing working on the campaign with to rename. Just kind of that. There's very little known. When I did first discover it, it seemed like there was no representation from non-federally recognized tribes. It looks like that has since changed since the last time I saw it. But just being non-federally recognized, it really means something to us. But that brings me kind of into our next question: is that our difficulty isn't just, you know, a race against time with our language or trying to preserve land so we can even gather our materials, but it's also like battling like UC Berkeley, for instance. I've been battling them for years and trying to get my people's language and recordings, and I keep getting the runaround. And then it's end up you almost have to go to another professor and say, can you please ask them to transfer this over, because they're going to listen to you. It's almost enough for me as I'm going back to school and applying for grad school that I see that I have to get a doctorate, because those 3 little letters mean more to them than just me coming with my hand in my hat and saying, hey, can I get what my great uncle had? And then they come back and say, well, we got to talk to the people. Well, you're talking to the family member. How do I get it going? And the people that you meet at the lower level have a very limited knowledge base, and that's quite frustrating. And then it's equally frustrating because as non-federally recognized, I can only speak to here in Fresno County, the knowledge in the unified school districts is so limited. I understand that the Indian education has to represent all tribes, but they bring in speakers from all over the country and the state, and very rarely, if ever, do they reach out locally to the elders. So then we have our own children going in, and yeah, they see Native representation, but they don't see their own people. And to me, that means a lot, because our things are just as endangered. I can't travel with my flicker feathers or my eagle feathers or a lot of those stuff. And a lot of the outside of the region who are not indigenous to this area don't understand what those cocoon rattles mean to us, or what these certain basket weavings mean to us. And that's really disheartening, because we can bring in other tribal members from the coast of California, from up north, and they can do a wonderful, wonderful assembly. But our children, who are comprised mostly of local indigenous people, they don't get to see their own representation. And that's just kind of disheartening in a lot of ways. So I guess just off the top of my head, I just like to see more of our voice being echoed and our concerns being echoed. And that's why I was asking immediately if that will happen, because, you know, if you are impacted and you are a member of a federally recognized tribe, it's always on your mind. And therefore, we feel like if we can see one of our own, we believe that our voices are actually going to be heard. Someone's echoing our voice. But if someone is merely in charge to represent us, but doesn't have that background, it's very hard to self-identify with that person and truly believe that they are there voicing your concerns. It's almost like, well, this is just a dog and pony show again. And here we are, the non-federally recognized, just relegated to the history books, even though we are still here. And I just kind of feel like it's just a race against time.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. And I do want to also emphasize one thing that Christina mentioned a few minutes ago. as a council, we don't actually meet at all outside of public view. So when you guys, when we do these listening sessions and folks are telling us that this is the stuff that's going into the reports, right? This is the stuff that's going to be animating what we communicate to the governor and so forth. So I really appreciate what you're saying, because the more people say it, the more frequently, the more we can echo that up the chain. So, and then make sure that we stand by it, and you guys hold us accountable then for making sure that we're backing you up. So I know it may feel like, futile sometimes, but I'm also representing here in this context an unrecognized tribe. So I appreciate that you're speaking out like this, and thank you.
I had one additional question. You talked about a youth council. When I was an undergrad at Davis, I tried to compile a collegiate council. I tried to lay in the framework for a collegiate council, pretty much modeled after MECHA, how they divided it up regionally in the state, and they did a lot of work, not only with their high school youth and transitioning them into college and higher learning, but also how these collegiate students then could mass and have a significant voting force. So my question is, has that ever been considered as far as having a collegiate council participating in it as well?
I think this is the first that has been expressed in that way. I think that would be helpful to hear more about in the context of the youth engagement, and what the youth engagement looks like, whether it's, broken up by age group and there's a couple of different components, or whether it's broken up by, folks that are in the UC and CSU systems versus other places. So I think that any input you have, I think would be really helpful for the council to kind of get its head around how it wants to do that. And then also, to be clear on the subcommittee pieces, once they're staffed, they'll meet in different contexts. So they'll meet like this, but also as the subcommittee. So if there's ideas for that council and how it should move forward, as soon as it's staffed, we'll have a meeting kind of like this, at all of those ideas for them as well to think. And then Roman, did you have any additional? I know you said you had multiple things to mention, and I just want to make sure that you got that chance before we
you kind of touched on it. It was just regarding to aiding federal recognition. Like my tribes have been battling over 40 years, since before I was born, and we're nowhere further along. And that kind of impedes a lot of progress, especially with my campaign to rename. A lot of the tribes are very hesitant to lend written support, tribally speaking, because of the fear that it may jeopardize them somehow with their federal recognition process being successful. So I kind of wonder about that, because I tell people, and maybe in a generation, maybe when my children have their children, my grandchildren, my tribe's going to be in a real dire state. And I don't know how much longer we're really going to be able to sustain ourselves without having the resources to preserve our culture, without having an archive to save our languages, to preserve things, photographs, having access to these readily available. That's kind of my question, just because it really feels like a race against time.
Thank you. And the council has your comments. They have been thinking about this a lot, actually, the focus on the constraints and challenges and historical context of federal recognition. One thing that came up earlier this week was even the origination for legitimacy in the census rolls and DAWS rolls and the like, how did that happen? How was that flawed? What did the state do in that context? And so there's been a lot of discussion, and so really appreciate your comments. Faith, your hand is raised if you'd like to make a comment.
Hi, can you hear me? Mia? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm in my car right now, but so the lighting is really bad, and it's really windy out here. So Mia Quinn at Neto Faith Mario Net Hen Sukut Nilna Hello, my name is Faith Carrillo. I'm an enrolled member of the Torres Martinez Desert Kuya Indians tribe. And I just appreciate the council and this space and this forum. Just, we're so used to this consultation type listening, and and part of that is definitely a part of our healing, being able to hear one out. And I think we do that naturally, and we do that constantly as tribal people. My only concern when it has to deal with the state, right, is what action is going to be taken, what is the plan moving forward, and understanding that we're not just being heard, but something is actually going to be done. And I know you probably have plans for that. And I am also coming in a little late, trying to figure out the whole process for this. But I do appreciate everyone's time. And I'm hoping that more and more of your council will sit in these regional types of forums, rather than just the full-on Friday agenda. Because I think it's really important that if they're going to be seated and they're going to be responsible for understanding, and it's community-based, and I believe that, and I know many of them are busy, and we're all busy in our schedules, but if they've committed, it would really be nice to see more of the council understanding them and knowing who they are and how they will be representing our voices. But the number one thing, and this won't be the last you'll hear of me, but there's a really need as far as in the education for funding and support of emerging tribal community colleges. And now I say that because I do recruit and outreach for the California Indian Nations College. That's my job. And I, learning and seeing how such a need is, we talked about creating youth councils and committees, and having more native, faculty, instructors, professors. And I teach our language, the Kuya language. And so, we, a lot of times you cannot do that in a college setting or university setting without a specific type of degree. But yet that knowledge and that need, there's a need for us to teach and to have a forum and to have a place and to have support. But yet there's no funding behind supporting, the emerging tribal community colleges and universities, either state or federally. So I just wanted to make sure that that was put on, and that was listed as a need and recorded. And again, like I said, this will not be the first. I know I've spoke to our tribe. We've reached out to various tribes to help gain support and partner and helping, legislatively to have that need understood and dealt with. And so hopefully, this will be the first of, many efforts to try to get that issue raised and some positivity towards funding for those institutions. But Achima, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And if I could be a bit responsive to a few pieces just for this group. I want to back up really quickly to something Roman said about folks knowing about the council. So we heard that from the council itself as well. And so staff is in the process of trying to get a contract together to do kind of day-to-day outreach to make sure that we're getting more on the ground day-to-day help in public community outreach. And then also a larger campaign to kind of have a bigger long-term lift of national outreach and making sure that folks that want to engage with this council are aware of it, understand what it's doing, and can kind of track it. So that is on deck. Another two contracts, while I'm speaking of contracts that we're thinking about and we'll probably engage in the near term, are a contract for a research facilitator and coordinator, and then also a contract for the report writer. So their thoughts or anything on that, happy to hear those. And then specific to Faith, your comments in terms of what this council can do and what the state will do in response. The council is charged with examining all of this truth telling, and then also can provide recommendations aimed at reparation and restoration. And so the idea here is that the council itself will frame how all of this looks, but ideally the findings will point to things that it views as being restorative in nature, and recommendations aimed at that. My internet connection is unstable, so if I'm cutting, I apologize again. And so some of those items are going to be things that the state needs to step up on and needs to either change statute, needs to put funding at, needs to rehaul how it thinks. So some of them acknowledging the fact that the people who live in this state now are inheritors legacy of genocide, and that there is a collective responsibility to acknowledge and make up for that, is that some of those recommendations aimed at reparation can actually be items that are taken up by communities, organizations, philanthropy to fund other types of practices. So for example, we've been in conversations, and I'm not trying to name drop, I just think he does really great work, but we've been in conversations with Edgar Villanueva, who authored Decolonized Wealth. He now has an organization called the Decolonizing Wealth Project that's aimed at elevating communities of color, specifically Indigenous peoples, but also other communities, and also funding reparations work. And so how that works is that if there are items that you identify as being, this can be restorative, this can be reparative, like let's say, funding language programs for all Native youth and access to that. You attach a line item price tag to that, then a Ford Foundation or a Kellogg Foundation can take that and say, I'm going to fund this. This is how I'm going to commit to reparations for California Native people, and then just take that up and do it. So there's a lot of ways that this action can be moved, both by state action, but also more importantly by the collective whole. So that's a very long answer for a lot of things that the state could do. And then I did want to touch on to, you brought up the tribal colleges. That's come up a couple of times this week, and how the tribal colleges could be a part of this work, and how they could be elevated in this space. So we've gotten feedback from several folks about the importance of language programs and what that would mean for Native peoples in general. So just wanted to acknowledge that your comments are heard, that they've also been discussed in other spaces in this work. So keep remembering things that you've mentioned. Part of the reason why we don't have the full complement of council members in these listening sessions is because we're kind of restricted by open meeting laws in how many can convene at a certain point in time. And so while we are being open and transparent about these meetings, we do want them to be fairly open-ended, and we want there to be as much kind of community engagement and opportunities as possible. So we have had rotating council members engage in the different days. So if you joined yesterday, we had some of the council members from the northern region. If you joined the day before, we from the eastern region. And so depending on the day you show up, if to different council members, you can just go to their regional listening session. But the idea is that each region will kind of get the opportunity to talk to different folks, and then also convene together on that Friday and share observations with the group as needed. Okay, I'll stop talking at this point. We do have a raised hand from Celeste, if you'd like to.
Hi, yes, Manahu. My name is Celeste Townsend. I'm a registered member of the Fort Bidwell Indian community, which is in Northern California. However, I live out here in Southern California. I am currently the president of California Indian Nations College, which is the emerging tribal college in the state of California. And I didn't really get to hear Faith because our visionary Teresa Mike called, but I want to say thank you, Christina, Loretta, for having us here and putting us on this platform to be able to address and have our voices heard. I heard Faith mention about the funding needs for tribal colleges, but I think too is strengthening the evolution of education in Indian education today. We all know that it was a platform to colonize our people, to assimilate our being, our identities, and hearing Roman talk about the unrecognized tribes and the struggle they have It's disheartening to hear that this is out there. And I think too, if we use education as a platform to change that, we have a better chance in surviving. He and his tribes and all these other tribes that are unrecognized have a better chance of being heard. And I think that's the main thing, is they're not included. And that's all I kept thinking is, where's the inclusion of these unrecognized tribes? If we don't trust the education process, how can we educate our people? How can we educate the non-tribal communities? And I think too, in hearing the historical atrocities that have happened, that carries through to these generations today, to where they don't trust education. We have a median age of 35 for a tribal college. People keep talking about the youth. And yes, our youth are so important and have to have that seed planted. But what about those who are still living in that scar and didn't get the chance? So a lot of what our students are telling us is that they feel safe. They feel like it's time to come back. And I think it's so important that this council address the evolution of education. We're trying to make a change. And it's so disheartening to know that this state has over 800,000 Native Americans and not one tribal college that's fully accredited. No funding line items for us, and we're struggling, but we're going to pull through. We are reaching out to many local tribes. We have over 47 students right now who are trying. And again, their median age is 35. They feel safe. We have a few that are concurrently enrolled, but again, too, the ones that are coming back, we're hearing that they're learning how to study. They're learning how to trust this system. And we've made it to where it's more personalized for them. But again, trusting that educational system is so hard. I worked at Sherman Indian High School, which one of 4 off-reservation boarding schools for 17 years, and seeing the struggle then. Having their kids come across the states to come to a college is so hard and so challenging, yet can be so rewarding. But again, it's trusting the educational system. And I think promoting Indian education to where it's highly valued and no longer feared is what we have cut out in this state for us to do, so that we can embrace all tribal Indigenous people, federally recognized or unrecognized. I can't imagine what you're going through, Roman. My heart goes out to you and your people. If there's anything we can do at the college, please, I'll put my email address up there. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a couple of things in the comments if folks would like to turn their attention to those. There's links, and again, some resources from the Tongva tribe. If anyone has resources for getting land back, there's some contact information as well. Additional comments or folks who want to introduce themselves to the group? Janelle?
Hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Perez. I currently live in Bellflower, which is Tongva land, and I am Tongva Native American. I've just begun to sort of research my own culture and history because it was taken from me. And I've recently discovered in my digging and my own personal research that there is a parcel of land called Tejon Ranch, which used to be, have you heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So apparently Edward Beale, who was a superintendent of Indian Affairs in the 1800s, I think the 1850s, he was supposed to give that land to us because it was our land and there was an agreement for that. That never happened, and it became part of Tejon Ranch, which is now still operating, and it's still, there's a business on it and all these different things. There's actually a lot of resources that I dropped in the Google form that I put in there, and they're trying to further develop the land, but it's not even their land to develop. So it's very upsetting to me to see this. And if anybody has any kind of resources as far as like attorneys who specialize in helping, stop these proceedings from happening, or getting land back, I would really appreciate that, because as of now, I don't think there's any kind of plans to, a judge actually did stop them from further developing on the land, but it wasn't because, you know, the land should be belonging to the Tongva. It was for conservation reasons. So basically animals and the, you know, nature, that's great that they stopped it, but they honestly didn't do it for the right reasons. And I would like to see that land given back. I'm currently helping an effort towards, if anyone has heard of Bruce's Beach, that was land that was owned by an African-American family back in the 1912, I believe. And it was taken by the city of Manhattan Beach, stolen from them. And currently there is legislation that is about to be passed, if it hasn't passed already, to help give that land back from the city to the descendants of the man who first bought it with his family. And I'm helping with that so that I can learn as I'm going how I can use the knowledge that I'm gaining through that kind of, you know, volunteer program, how I can help get the land back from my people. So it's I'm always learning new things, and it's just, you know, it's really sad, but it's also hopeful. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. And if folks have resources, I believe that contact information is in the chat.
Like, Christina, it's my turn. I told you, 3
Always
days in a
get
row.
some time on our
3 days in a
agenda.
row. I'll be quick because we've got 20 minutes and now other people may want to talk. But in response to Ramon's idea about the education and Janelle and Faith and I know each other. Celeste, I was also a teacher at Sherman Indian High School way back in the day, but not as long as you were. But in terms of education, James Ramos and I are, well, James Ramos mostly is putting through Assembly Bill 1554 third time, and that is, we're trying to emphasize California Indian history in the curriculum for the state of California. We have elementary and high school, and we really need a junior high, middle school person to design lessons for that level. And so again, we're not adding anything to the curriculum. We're just trying to emphasize California Indian history pre-K to 12. So again, we're talking about Native history. We're talking about just trust, and what we're looking to is putting forth more of our story within the California history story overall. And again, we're talking about Monday and Tuesday, is that we're trying to address this overall dropout rate, suicidal rate of our children, especially in the junior high, middle school area. So again, when you're talking about seeing yourself in the curriculum from local elders, from local tribal members, that's what we're trying to do within this Assembly Bill 1554. Also, ethnic studies now is going to be a graduation requirement come 2024. All high school graduates need to take ethnic studies. And now we're trying to redesign the Native American component because it was very poorly written, except the shell mounds lesson was really well done. But again, we're trying to put more rigor and more information about California Indians and American Indians in general within ethnic studies. What else would we had to do? The resources for teachers to gain lessons and curriculum would be like in different Cal States and UCs, like Sacramento, Chico, San Marcos. Cal State San Bernardino is getting to be a pretty good resource also that I didn't mention in the past. So again, we're trying to get through in terms of the California Teachers Association and the American Indian Alaska Native Caucus to get our voice heard within the California history curriculum. And hopefully we all can get together, like Christina said, where that's all on us. Okay, we've got to figure out how we're going to do this, and we will. So again, thanks again, Christina, and the third time, one more time. But again, look for AB 1554. If we can get more support, that'd be great. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Christina, can I just get, this is following up on one of the things you mentioned earlier about the council being able to take action. Are we permitted to be able to say support, specific legislation that's moving through? I'm assuming not, but I just wanted to make sure I got clarification on that.
I would need to look into that a bit more. I would say that, yeah, let me look into that a bit more. Part of this is that you are associated with the governor and the governor's office, and that can be a little bit politically tricky. So we'll look into it. Additional comments, questions, thoughts? One thing that has been mentioned a little bit are the boarding schools, and it might be something to maybe think about for this council, and both in the context of reprogramming type of teaching, but also in the context of moving around populations in California where they don't historically necessarily belong, or they do belong, but where they aren't historically from. So for example, Sherman Indian School came up quite a bit, and the population in Riverside has a ton of pomos down there because of it, and a ton of mixing of different tribes, and kind of the impacts of that on movement, land issues, living on reservation versus off, all of that, urban Indian living. So just something maybe to think about, or if anyone has any comments. And then any other comments, questions, concerns, or if you are taking it in and you'd like to cover, that's totally fine as well. And then we've got some more contact information in the chat too. And again, I wanted to also clarify for folks that were thinking about engaging with the council directly, as long as the council members are okay with that direct engagement, or provide you, some contact information, you're totally fine with contacting them directly, as long as it's not all of the council at once, because then we may have some issues with open meeting laws. But if you have thoughts and you'd like to engage directly with the council members, you are totally welcome to do so.
And I've put my email address into the chat. That's my work email address, and that's so that in case anything gets FOIA'd, everything goes through my work address. I just never know. I did want to maybe mention one thing, if it's okay. There was a UN Permanent Forum side event that happened this morning, where we got to listen to some of the, Alexis and I, who was on earlier, got to listen to some of the different activities that are happening around truth and healing across the globe. And one of the things that I thought was really inspiring from Alaska was this idea about centering the work of their healing council on themes, right? So, and the first theme that they're working on or working with is about protections of their ways of life. So focused on hunting and fishing, regulation, so on and so forth. In all of those contexts, I think, right, unrecognized issues have space. Recognized tribes have their own sets of issues working directly with the state and so forth. But there's I think if we categorically approach it with some of these themes, we might be able to make sure that we're hitting all of the various issues. Because I think at the end of the day, some of our recommendations are going to have to be directed at state offices, right? And then as well as at some of the different organizations and entities that could support the work outside of that, right? I don't know if any of you guys saw recently, Levi Strauss company is doing some kind of funding opportunity for community leaders, Indigenous and Black community leaders. But, my first thought was, hey, well, why is this not, this is about the 49, right? This is about the gold rush. This is, the Levi Strauss is one of the big, beneficiaries of California's very violent genocidal history. So some of that needs to be definitely dog-eared or thought about in the context of what the work of the council is. And we can, I think, hopefully eventually make recommendations to partners, people who want to partner with us, to make sure that they're accounting for some of the benefits of their existence here in California. But so there's a lot of work to be done, and hopefully you guys will all come back repeatedly. But the theme there was accountability partners, right? Who are the people that need to be at the table that maybe don't have a voice so much at the table, so much as they're listening. They're doing a deep listening to understand how they've benefited through, from colonization and so forth. So accountability partners are something I think we'll hopefully be talking about soon.
Thank you, Council Member. And just a thought on the piece about how to divide up the work. I think there is value in dividing it in a way that isn't siloing certain populations. If this is going to be kind of a collective effort at healing. So I like that. And then on the accountability partners, I think if the council and the community have ideas about that, or have some resources to point to earlier on, I think that we can start kind of working toward that in either the partnerships subcommittees or elsewhere. That specific company you brought up has some ties to the governor's office, and so there are some real opportunities right now. And we have, frankly speaking, a lot of folks tied to the governor's office who have multi-generations in California, which unfortunately implicates them in this whole work. And so the sooner that kind of gets laid, the more that, Loretta and I can start engaging those folks as well to start thinking about this in a accountability oriented way. Janelle, you had a hand raised as well.
I did. Hi again. Do you know, Christina, if the council has any plans or any knowledge about specifically in regards to the land back issue? Are they planning to devote any resources or establish some sort of special task force? What is that going to look like? Because I really feel that that's such an important issue that it almost deserves its own, separate thing. What does that look like? Do you know?
If you have recommendations on what you would want that to look like, I think that would be helpful for the council. I anticipate that they will look at land and natural resources specifically. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of ways that they could potentially partner with other organizations, whether it's legal organizations, whether it's philanthropy to help fund some of this, whether it's other agencies to help, deregulate or move around statutes that are outdated. Yes. So I think if you have ideas about what that would look like ideally and what would meet the needs of the community, the council would be happy to hear that.
Okay, I think that's something I'll probably have to think about a little bit more, and I'll draft an email and just send it over. Will somebody respond to me if I email?
We try to at least respond. We may not have a full response of how we're going to do things because that needs to go to the council for consideration, but sure. We will respond that we're in receipt. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
And it would be helpful if you put the California Truth and Healing Council in the subject because we get many emails. So that's just logistical. Thank you.
Okay, got it. I definitely will. Thank you. Well,
so we've got about 7 minutes if folks have other ideas or, to what Janelle just brought up, if there are specific needs that you already see that you think the council could be helpful on, or you see ways that the council could do this work that would be helpful to the community at large, would love to hear a bit more of that. Or conversely, I know Roman, you just unmuted, so I'm going to stop talking in 1 second. Conversely, if you've seen models in different communities where some of this work has been done, and that could be imported to this, would love to hear that too.
I was just going to ask, is there any communication between the council and our 2 elected senators for the state? Is there any kind of partnership or anything going on? I know you guys are reporting to the governor, but what about the 2 senators that we have? Are they involved at any level?
As of yet, they have not been involved. If the council would like to engage with them, that's a conversation that we can have. I know that newly established Senator Padilla has been working with tribes collaboratively for some time now. I won't speak on other things, but it would be, I know that Congress in general and the federal administration has been moving more in a pro-tribal direction, and it would be a missed opportunity for California to not engage on the complexity of issues here, which the federal government is pretty much on the hook for, at least part of. So that was a long answer. I think that, you know, if and how this council wants to engage, they can consider that as well.
Roman, also to mention something I found out about today was, and I was not really keen on until this morning, was about there's apparently an effort to establish a U.S. Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation Commission, and that's being partially organized by Barbara Lee out of the Bay Area, and then Senator Booker. And so that's something that's also kind of simultaneously going on. And there are 14 other places, across the country that are looking at implementing some of their version of a Truth and Healing Council as well.
Do you know, council member, is that open to different communities?
It sounds like it is. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out more information about it, but oh my gosh. Medicine Crow out of Alaska from First Alaskans was the lead person, I believe, on it for today's meeting, discussing it, and I think she's pretty engaged on that. So I don't know. I think she mentioned the 14 communities and that there are 5 separate pillars, you know, that they're working around themes again, but I don't know, and so I am curious, at least in terms of how our work will complement or support or be similar to what they're doing.
Great. And then also, before Secretary Holland was confirmed in office, she had introduced a bill on Truth and Reconciliation in the boarding school. So I don't know if that has moved at all, but there is some conversation out there, and then there is an ally within the administration as well, to the extent that that goes anywhere. So we've got about 3 minutes. If anyone has any last minute comments, questions, reactions. Can also put anything in the chat.
And I just want to express appreciation for sharing the information about these listening sessions. It's difficult for us until we can, if the council chooses to hire somebody to do this outreach, it's on us and our social media pages. So please share with everybody that this is a community-driven initiative. And so if you can help us get the words out, which you have already done, it's just much appreciated.
So we have a question in this chat about, does the council plan to help state recognized tribes become federally recognized somehow? This has been part of the ongoing conversations of something that should be under consideration by the council. So at this time, the council's still in the listening phase, but I do imagine that it will have some piece, whether it's within the context of how recognition even happened to begin with, because that implicates both enrollment and recognition at the same time, or whether it's specific to issues of recognition now and the termination era and all of that, but that is under the consideration of the council. And so again, similar to the land back type of initiative, the council could put forth recommendations for assistance and you know, making the broader community aware of kind of the gaps and the needs and the places where work can be done. So again, if there are more, if you have thoughts on that and how that could look and what would be most helpful, I think the council would welcome that as well. Well, we are just about at time. So what I'd like to do is if Councilmember Kessler-Mata, if you have any closing remarks.
Not particularly, but I'm really appreciative and glad I was able to jump on this call today. So thank you guys for amplifying all these issues. You know, I have more questions than answers sometimes. And I feel like sometimes, you know, leaving these meetings, it's really good because it helps me generate some of those. So hopefully we can bring those back to the full council on Friday.
Wonderful. Thank you. And with that, we will go ahead and end today's listening session. Thank you all for your time. All of this is only as good as the community engagement. And so again, thank you for your time, and we hope to see you again soon and maybe even tomorrow or Friday. So take care, everyone.
Thank you so much.